Hey, what's up, you guys? So, with so much automation going on, and say computers and robots taking on more and more tasks, I was wondering how I would feel about driverless cars and pilotless planes being officially implemented in society. Would I trust them for long term? And we already know that there is such thing as driverless cars. I'm not sure if pilotless planes are a thing yet or if they are prototypes or something. But all in all, the more I think about it, I want to say that I would trust um, driverless cars and pilotless planes only because, of course, humans can make errors under certain circumstances. Hey, Garuda, like if you are a pilot and you just misread something or miscalculate something, or you happen to be tired, you fall asleep, you miscommunicate something, you forget to do something, whatever the causes of airplane crashes are these days, which honestly is very few, or at least if they happen often, we don't hear about them because I guess the incidents are minor. But but I would say that relying on a computer means that the computer will be programmed specifically to function in a specific pattern that should ensure that mistakes don't happen. And when it comes to cars, because there are still human drivers, does this mean that driverless cars are going to have like their own little lane so that they can follow their own little paths? Because let's face it, sometimes we have that one crazy driver who decides to speed through an intersection despite the light being red. Let's say that a driverless car is still rolling because it detects that their light is green. Can it see this other car coming that decided to ignore their red light and speed demon through the intersection just to cross? Human drivers can see that. Human drivers can anticipate that this car is coming too fast to come to a complete stop, despite your light being green. That's why before making a turn, um, I look both sides. Even though the light is green and legally it is my turn, I still look side to side because you just never know. The road is ever changing. You may count on someone being there, other times not. So, can a driverless car make those types of decisions? Can it detect a vehicle that is ignoring a red light? I think that to roll out driverless cars, you would need to ensure that all of the road is transited only by driverless cars. But at the same time, if an emergency emerges, what's going to happen then? Um, do you have a program that's like fail safe, that's all about safety? Because I would want for there to be a way to steer a vehicle to give your human input, given that you can analyze the situation in the exterior and take control of the car. But these days, from what I understand, driverless cars don't have a way for you to actually control them. So I think that is a cause of concern. I don't like knowing that I don't have a way to interfere with this piece of automation decision making process. If I see an impending danger, I think I should be able to make that decision. And Garuda mentioned that a driverless car has already killed someone jaywalking at nighttime. See, that's another thing. The weather changes. Can the car detect where there are flooded areas before driving into it? Can you detect when not to drive too fast because the road is snowy? I would assume that they would have the setting for the vehicle pre-established, but we cannot not drive just because we have self-driving cars that do not think about the weather in advance. See what I mean? So those would be some of my concerns. While I think that they may be efficient in the aspect of, because you are programmed to focus on just one task, you will not experience fatigue nor boredom, which tends to lead to poor performance in humans. I'm still worried that we as humans would become too dependent on them to where we start lacking those skills ourselves. I think it's important that we keep reinforcing our skills. Like, you become a better driver, hopefully, the more experience that you have on the road, because you have encountered incidents, you have driven under different kinds of weather, different types of terrain, so you would know what idea of the road to get for certain situations. Like, okay, if the road is all like rocky, you know not to speed through it. And if the road is also very, very like wet from excess rainfall, you know that you should slow down. Those are the things that worry me about self-driving vehicles and pilotless planes. Like, in case of emergency, how will this thing react? And we all know that every day there's a new situation that you haven't trained for, you haven't practiced for, you've never heard of. So the machine can only perform what it's programmed to do. So in a situation like that where something new just emerges, how does it respond to that? A person at least has a way to go outside of their tasks. That's how people respond during emergencies. You are used to your routine, but when something comes up, at least you can rely on your independent thinking and the ability to imagine and flexibility of, I don't know, thought, whatever you want to call that, to make decisions that can save lives. But I'm pretty sure that automation cannot do something greater than mankind. And I mean that in the sense of, what can I say? The complexity of a task. Of course, machines can push things better than we can. They can lift things better than we can if you program them and design them for that. But once you program them and design them for that, that's all they can do. Whereas a human being has a more broad set of abilities. So how would you make the transportation system safer with automation during emergencies? Like, how can they react to those emergencies? That's what I want to know. And that's really what makes me say I would not trust not having a human who can give an input to this machinery. Can you turn it off like cruise control? No. We established earlier that most driverless vehicles don't have steering wheels even. It's like you just sit in them and they have control. And then I was saying that I think the only way to ensure maximum efficiency when it comes to that is that universally all of the road doesn't have any human drivers. But at the same time, how practical is that? Sounds dangerous. Exactly, it is dangerous because we have barely figured out ground travel when we have control. Like, we can barely handle it. Why would we rely on a computer to be making those types of decisions and also perform those types of maneuvers? I gave an example of, say, that person who always runs the red light, even though it was obviously red. You as a human can interpret the fact that there's a vehicle incoming way too fast to safely come to a stop, so you have to assume that their intent is to keep going. A self-driving car is probably going to be on the mode of, the light is green, it's time for me to proceed, despite the incoming danger. That's what worries me. How are they programmed? Can they efficiently detect dangers that go outside of their program? So that's what I'm not very sure about. And then we all know that anything that mankind creates is bound to break down at some point. What is going to happen when your car just fails? Your driverless car just fails. Who's gonna fix it? What can you do? That just worries me because at least if you can steer it, you can steer a car that's like off. You have someone sitting on the steering wheel and you can push it and it'll do its thing. But how do you push a driverless car? See what I mean? That's another thing to consider. Maybe they'll be lighter, maybe they will have a different shape to what we're used to, but is it the Tesla company that will offer this? On that one, I'm not sure. This is honestly one of those topics that I'm just discussing just because. But I feel like they're already working on something like that. And I don't know if this is true or if it was just a rumor of one of their goals that they have, but they were talking about putting a car in space or some shit. And I'm like, no, we cannot even drive in this planet. What makes you think that you can take your vehicles to space? Like you need to chill out. See what I mean? You're getting way too ahead of yourself. But I guess if anyone is to come out with officially the one driverless car that really goes out to be purchased by the general public, I think it would be Tesla. It would definitely have to be Tesla. It sounds like something they would do. And if not, then Toyota, but via Lexus. So I don't know. I just hope that those do not become a thing until we have all of these points that I mentioned, plus the stuff that I'm independently not capable of thinking right now to present during the stream, all figured out. Because I don't want to go through BS during my transportation habits. And I personally enjoy being a driver myself. So, in other words, I do not trust anyone better than myself to be driving myself around. But anyways, that's pretty much all that I have to say on this matter. So to give my definitive vote, I say no. I would not trust them. There are some things that I think would be beneficial, such as, again, the factor of human fatigue and human distraction and boredom affecting your performance. But I think that in general, people can keep themselves safe even when you're tired, even when you're um, like bored or something. Because I know boredom makes you lose interest, and the routine is what kills humans. Once you break from the routine, you get overwhelmed sometimes, and sometimes you get too comfortable with routine that you become soft and rusty, and you may not have, say, defensive driver skills. And then for pilots is when you are bored, you may fall asleep, and when you fall asleep for extended periods of time, you lose track of what your plane is doing. And let's say that you're also during landing and you're fatigued, you may make a stupid decision. You may make a stupid mistake. It has already happened in real life where planes have crashed because of pilot error that was linked to fatigue that other people witnessed on the pilots. And then, of course, I'm pretty sure that they conducted experiments or something, or they had studies that backed up the fact that when you're tired as hell, you are not as efficient. And you don't really need to be scientific to know that when you're tired, your performance declines. So, anyways, I just don't want to be putting my hands, like my life, on the hands of something that I cannot reason with. So a driverless car and a pilotless plane, it's like, okay, what's making you decide what you're deciding to keep me safe? See what I mean? Let's see. You could sleep on the way to work. Honestly, why don't you sleep at home? See what I mean? If you have to sleep outside of your house or your sleep hours, you need to do something with your schedule. I would encourage anybody who's struggling to sleep and you find yourself just dozing off at work, you need to do some changes. You need to make some changes in your life because you should be able to sleep when it's designated, which hopefully is at nighttime unless you're one of those people who has to work overnight. Worst part would be winter on ice, don't trust it. Yep, I mentioned that earlier. I said stuff like when it snows and whatnot, how do you determine what part of the road, like how do you determine A, that the road is icy, and B, how to react in a road condition like that? And you know that no two snowfalls are the same. Some you can drive through, some will deposit more snow on some areas that accumulate more than other areas of the road. Sometimes you can just drive right over it, other times you have to sort of dodge it. And when it comes to the rain, sometimes there are just edges of the road that get somewhat flooded, but sometimes a road can be completely flooded. So, can the computer of the driverless car see that ahead of time? Okay, this road is not, you cannot drive through it. So, what do I do? And what would be the alternative? Like, is it going to U turn? Is it smart enough to U turn safely? So, yeah, that definitely gets me thinking, because as a human driver, at least, if you do a U turn and you miss the degree in which you have to turn, you know to back up and correct it. Can the computer do that? And I guess let's say that it works by GPS. Let's say that someone, let's call it the government, some government agency pins in your GPS that there is a flooded road. Maybe that's how the driverless car will interpret the fact that the road ahead is flooded. It works through GPS and it sends a signal, and it's like, okay, I'm heading into a road that has been declared flooded. I cannot keep going down this road because at some point I'll encounter the flood. Could it be that that's the type of technology that they're implementing? Because everything seems to work with GPS now. So, so yeah, I think that until I just no longer can, either for physical or mental reasons, I will continue to drive myself. Sounds very sketchy. I wouldn't buy one personally. Yeah, true. But then again, this is just me talking. I'm not an engineer. I am in no way a car expert nor a computer expert. So maybe it's not that bad. But these are the questions that I would have. I just don't understand why people want this. I would never ride in one and don't want to be on the road with one. See, honestly, I guess it would be, why would people want this? Some people genuinely may not want to have a license. And it's probably because, how can I say? I just love my car so much that I cannot imagine not a benefit to not having it. But I guess people who don't enjoy driving may see it as useful, but what about driving do you not enjoy? Do you find it stressful? Do you find it uh, challenging? Individuals who are handicapped, those would benefit from driverless cars. But don't they have cars that have settings for you to be able to drive them even if you're handicapped? So I guess it would be beneficial for some people out there, but for the general public, no. I believe that accommodations already exist that are pretty effective for anyone who's handicapped. So, but maybe if it could fly, I might buy it. If it could fly, I would be a whole nother level of worried. Because can you imagine? I did a stream about flying cars before, but to give a quick recap, what would a wreck of flying vehicles look like? First, you crash, and then you have to drop to the ground. How many lanes are there in the air? So, if you get in a wreck and your car just falls, you can fall on the next row of cars that are beneath you. Because there may be more than one lane in the air, and the only way for you to access the next lane is to ascend or descend. Unless it's something like, I don't know, what's The fifth element, didn't it have like a crazy scene where you have this city with a bunch of flying cars? A wreck like that in a setting like that would be terrible. So I hope that it never turns into something like the fifth element. It's just asking for the worst kind of disaster. And then not only that, but the emergency crew. Once there's a wreck, how do you even begin to assist these people? I don't think you have to be worrying about assisting anyone. I think your death is guaranteed. But then again, maybe the safety record in those cars would be superior to ours being ground travelers. But that I think would make cars unaffordable because I'm pretty sure that the material that keeps you safe and alive is going to be pricey. And then how do you even file for insurance for that? And don't even get me started on crimes too. How can you track a crime that happens on a vehicle that's flying? Sometimes skid marks give away evidence. Sometimes just tracks on the road, on the ground, may lead to something. So I feel like we are making ourselves deprived of some vital information that has helped save lives or bring people to justice in the past. See what I mean? But anyways, that's just the dark side of my brain, just trying to bring up another point. Planes already fly themselves for 99% of the flight. True. Elon Musk has some really good seminars about this topic. Men couldn't blame women drivers anymore. Flying cars would also be incredibly noisy. Think drones in a 30 times scale. If we want flying cars, we have helicopters. You know what? I never considered the fact that flying cars would be noisy like that. Yeah, I know that, of course, jet airplanes are incredibly noisy, but I guess someone would have to engineer a silencer. There seems to be a way to mute everything, but not realistically. The technology of a flying car, I'm not savvy about that at all, so maybe I'm asking among the most basic questions, which is, how can you make them quiet, or what makes them generate so much noise? But anyways, I'm just really trying to express what I consider to be the cons that outweigh the pros as to why I would not trust my life to a driverless car or pilotless plane for long term. I guess it should be reserved for certain corners. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a city and some parts of the city don't experience so much traffic, I guess. Maybe a driverless car could be safe there. Because Garuda was saying earlier, he mentioned that one pedestrian who got killed for jaywalking at night. So if you introduce them to an area that's not very heavily populated, maybe it would have a greater incidence of success. But my concerns would still be there. Or imagine if you called an Uber and you boarded a driverless car. Yeah, how would that make you feel? No, 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 no. I do hope they get rid of gas powered cars. You know what? I hope that if that ever becomes a thing and it gets turned into a law, I hope that we can somehow redesign the current car that you have and make it electric, I guess. Because I would really hate to go through the process of buying a new car completely just because the law changed and the technology is different. It would be highly ineffective. And then what's going to happen to all gas powered cars? You cannot just recycle those. You cannot just burn those. How do you properly dispose of them? It sounds like it would be an environmental disaster. Because I would expect that since it was gas powered, its parts would be too contaminated to be reused or recycled. So I don't know, you guys. You guys would be more experts than me on that. You would have to let me know on that one. The logical answer to make a silent flying vehicle would be electromagnetic, but they would be throwing every piece of metal at hundreds of miles per hour. ELC is very quiet. I agree, Steve. Petroleum is a product of the 20th century that should be outdated. Unfortunately, politicians make a lot of money off them. I remember when I was taking AP Environmental Science that I had to do something with this topic about, oh yeah, it was hydrogen fuel cells. And I forget what my research was on when it came to what to do with gas cars. But I know that, of course, my teacher completely roasted me. It must be in my notes somewhere, but good God, what was it? If I find those notes, I'm gonna create a separate stream about it because I thought it was really interesting. But yeah, you guys, I would agree. The exhaust that comes out of them pipes is no good. You know, it doesn't feel good to breathe the exhaust from cars that exist currently. So there's no way that that can be a good thing for long term. So I would say that yes, gas powered stuff is definitely outdated, and gasoline is just something so harmful that we should just get rid of it. But anyways, do we have a highly effective replacement yet? Because when it comes to electric cars, unless I understand their performance and how to charge them, I'm not sure that I would ride one. Because I am starting to see places where you can plug in your car, but I don't want to have the stress of keeping track of how long I need to leave my cars plugged in for to be able to drive them, and how far can I drive them. It's like relearning the performance of your vehicle. With my gas powered car, I know just how far I can go on one gas tank. So what would affect the drain of electricity on a vehicle? Like, I know that I can make my car be more fuel efficient if I don't turn on the air, or if I don't roll down my windows when I'm at the highway. So stuff like that. I guess I would have to relearn the basics of driving, but the electric car perception. See what I mean? Hello, good question. I don't trust autonomous cars. I would love to see an organic engine arise in the next few years. Imagine ATP powered machines, wet works. That would be interesting now that I think about it. I never thought about, because fuel is involved, I never thought about organic engines. Now I know biofuel is a thing, but how efficiently can we mass produce that? But I don't think biofuel is better than an organic engine like that. Then again, I'm not very savvy at this, so don't take me too seriously. I'm just rambling. All is needed to build tight electric cars in even greater quantities than most petrol cars. It's not even cold yet. Why am I frozen? But I see the timer still going, so I'm gonna keep going. Let's see, what did I stop? The only driverless vehicle I would even think of risking would be something on a rail, a tram, cable, car, or something like that. Even then, I wouldn't trust it completely unmanned. See, that's the thing. I hope that if this automation stuff becomes popular, that there is a way for us to give our human input into it. Like earlier in the stream, I was saying that in case of emergency, how does this thing respond? How does this thing react? So, but anyways, it's not something that I have to worry about, but or at least not so soon, but still. You should do a video on DARPA making the neural link ZAM. Okay, I'll consider it. You should totally post that in the comments or another video's comments so that I don't forget, because I'm not gonna lie. I just am not thinking about that. That's too much for my brain. But I would definitely create the stream just to see you guys have at it. The thing with planes on autopilot is that it is used once the plane is at altitude and cruising speed in traffic-free areas. Do a video sometime on AI robots that look and sound and act like real women. It might replace us all someday. Oh, you better believe I have the video pending, or the stream pending. But I just have not gathered enough info for me to actually create a stream and ramble away like I'm used to. I have seen the one, what's her damn name? She looks like a bald Jenna Marbles. But anyways, I think her name starts with an S. And apparently she says some creepy stuff. So yeah, that video is coming. It is coming. You just sit tight for me. Organic engines equal horses. Yeah, those were the original engines, you know, the original sources of transportation, along with carriage. Once we figured out how to put wheels on things, didn't that make life just so much more amazing and our backs suffer less? Pilots are always there to take over for in-flight adjustments for storms, traffic, etc. Autopilots never take off or land while carrying passengers. There's a reason for that. Oh, absolutely. Sophia, yeah, that's her name. The neural link, I was gonna call her Sarah. The neural link would allow brain-controlled machines. You know what? You mentioned something incredibly interesting. But would we turn into Matrix people where we have to have like a hole drilled in our head and then we become somewhat cyborg so we can establish a communication with machinery? Because I don't think that as a human being, my neural processes can be compatible with a machine. But then again, how do prosthetic stuff works? Can someone who completely has like an arm sliced off, can you still command your arm how to move? Or does a prosthetic only work as something to give you the appearance of having a limb, but it actually doesn't perform any tasks like grasping, bending? I don't know much about that, to tell the truth, and I'm embarrassed because as someone who was interested in going into the medical field, I should know this stuff, but you know, I gotta have limitations at some point. Incidentally, have you seen Spider-Man 2? Oh yeah, Doc Ock and his little, what did he call that chip thing that he had in the back of his head, and then all those tentacles went rogue. I think that's the better movie of the Tobey Maguire generation. Come at me. Sophia the robot is creepy. Yeah, absolutely. Like the way she just smiles and her facial expressions just fuck. Yes, but Hollywood isn't reality. Basically, yeah, it would be very Matrix like. I'll admit, Sophia is kind of sexy. And then the 1975 says, man. So what will you do if you do nothing? She smiles like a lawyer, like grinning with the back teeth, you know? But yeah, the first time I saw a video of her, I was like, no, can't do it. Sophia actually is the first robot with citizenship. Oh my god, the fact that we have to consider robots politically as well. Robot rights. Can robots be overexploited? Do robots experience just, do they have desires or something? I don't know. Like, of course, the fascinating aspect of automation is the fact that you don't have to feed it, you don't have to give it breaks. If you gotta repair it, all you do is fix it and it can go back to performing the tasks that you need it to endlessly. But good god, I just see, I don't want to sound robotist, but can you imagine that you're out and about and your intention is to be all glammed up to look for someone, go on a date, you hit someone up, and then you find out that they're a goddamn robot? Like you see someone looking fine from a distance and you try to approach them, and then it turns out that they're a goddamn robot. We don't need to struggle with that in this life. Like determining whether you can actually mate with whom you're seeing. Like, do not give robots too much personality and have them walk amongst us. That is just asking for a whole nother wave of SJWs that we do not need in this society. So, anyways, it's fun to contemplate. If they demonstrate free will, I would argue they're just as human as us. What really makes us people? True, true. Replicants. Since AI robots are way smarter than us, could one run for president? Well, I mean, if you program this robot to actually work for the better interests of the people as a whole, as opposed to a specific privileged group, then sure. Because, I mean, honestly, anything is better than the current leadership that we have. Let's not get into that. uh, let's see. I believe the term is robophobic. I like robocist better. If AI becomes reality, they will be infinitely smarter than humans. But see, because artificial intelligence is something that mankind created, can mankind really design something superior to itself? Do you understand my question? I'm not sure that I asked that right, but anyways, in my brain it makes sense. Would a robot president have as much regard for life as a human one? A normal human one, not the one we have at the moment. You know what? That is a good ass point. Why would robots have regards for human? Because we created them? I would say so. I would say they would have to automatically have a high regard for humans because their existence is solely due to us. I don't think that they were a thing back in how long ago? When was the first piece of electric machinery a thing? Whenever electricity was discovered? But just because electricity was discovered at some point doesn't mean that electricity was not possible. It wasn't created. It was something that recurred already. Like in the atmosphere, you had lightning and shit, and you had these bioluminescent creatures that I'm sure work with some form of electricity, right? Or produce it. I don't fucking know. But that's what I'm saying. Can a robot be superior to its creator? I don't think so. I think it would be limited to whatever you program it with. So I guess we need to determine that. We need to establish that. What's the capacity of a robot? Um, like how complex can it get? I think the important thing is in not creating an overload is having each AI its separate intelligence. Good point. I guess they need to have a sense of not feeling unfairness, not feeling. I guess a robot would have a sense of purpose. Do they have a sense of purpose that would go against what they are designed to do? Like, say you create a robot that's supposed to dedicate to cooking, but because it is an AI, it decides, I don't want to cook, I want to be a fucking artist. Is that how artificial intelligence would work? Does it give them an independent mind with desires and hopes and wishes and goals? See what I mean? Does that even matter? I don't know. Probably not. I think, okay, they will also have artificial stupidity. I can imagine that that would be a new wave of videos. Like, I teach my robot how to videos about robots. How about that? That would bring new entertainment into the light. Some of the laws of robotics prevent them from harming any humans, so you would think that would be good, but it might also make pre Prezibot from making a tough decision. You mean prevent, right? Oh yeah, prevent. Prevent from also make prevent them from making a tough decision. But what guarantees that a human, excuse me, not a human, that a robot would obey laws? Because we know humans break laws. What's to keep a robot from breaking a law? It's down to the programming, but I don't know. These new sex partner robots are creepy as fuck. One looks just like Scarlett Johansson. So, would you guys design your robot to look like the ideal image of a partner that you have? Like, I guess everyone at some point, unless you have become a very open minded person, everyone just dreams of some specific traits. So if you happened to have the interest of purchasing this type of robot, would you design it to suit your appearance if the option is available? Like, ooh, I like for my robot to be tall. I like for her to be tan. I like for her to be slim. Or let's face it, some people like chunky people. There's nothing wrong with that. I like for her to have, I don't know, brown eyes. And I like for her to have a high pitch to her voice. And I like for her to be, I don't know, big breasted or something. Yeah, I think that would create a whole nother industry that we don't need to be worrying about because we're apparently already struggling with the current industry when it comes to fashion and whatnot. So we don't need to be influencing young people with the images of robots that were designed to conform to people's imagination. See what I mean? Like, oh, it's so difficult to date because men have unrealistic expectations and women also have unrealistic expectations of a guy and what he should look like and whatnot. So, because a robot doesn't feel anything, um, it won't be offended that you have a specification for how they should look. Would this be a positive thing or a negative thing? Like, as a whole. Because, the appearance of this robot is going to make some humans feel some type of way. Like, you may design something absolutely crazy, like absolutely taken from an anime or something. So, is that a bad thing or is that just you living your fantasy? I don't know. Personally, I cannot imagine myself buying a male sex robot just because I would rather just have a real guy to be involved with. But I guess some people have to take care of their needs somehow. And hey, I'm not crapping on you, but yeah. Google already had to shut down 2 AI because they developed their own language and started communicating in a way we couldn't understand. Real stupidity beats artificial intelligence every time. Terry Pratchett. She would have your beautiful hair. Oh, you like my hair? I guess I need to do the fall edition of the hair tease. I don't think I even did a summer one, so I think I should not even bother. But yeah. Replicants are more interesting, but they are not really robots. AI would be interesting, however, a very bad partner. They wouldn't have curiosity or desire to do anything you seem important. Imagine dating an ant. Because, yeah, having a sense of emotions, that's important. Interesting. Really complex there. I appreciate that because I wouldn't have thought about that at all. Maybe I would have after I maybe go offline and all of this digests. But, anyways, without initiative and its own emotion, a robot feels more like a slave than a partner or a colleague. I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable owning one, much less dating one. I want a robot that looks like, but the female version. Did you finish your thought, Garuda, or am I tripping? I feel like you need to finish your sentence. But the female version, yeah. So, anyways, you guys, I believe that we have pretty much gone over the topic, expressed our thoughts and ideas, and you guys had some very valid points. And I hope that you also see where I'm coming from, which, I mean, there was really no one disagreeing, but, or saying that they would like to see them. But yeah, I think that some people would definitely benefit from it. Like I said earlier, the only thing I can think of um, would be what handicapped people may be benefiting from it. But yeah, um, on a grand scale, I don't think that driverless and pilotless stuff is better. That's a little creepy to have a female you. Oh yeah, I consider that maybe he meant to talk about me. Like I want a robot that looks like you, meaning me, but the female version. And I'm like, do I appear suspicious to you? Do you need something? Because I would like to say I would be glad to, but I don't. I don't do that stuff. You know what I mean? But anyways, I'm confident that you're just trolling. But anyways, yeah. Or maybe he just signed out at that specific moment. Or maybe he's talking about one of you guys in here. Isn't that weird? Nah, nah. They could babysit maybe. I'm not sure that I would ensure the safety of my child to someone who is not really a someone. See what I mean? Like, how does a robot have a sense of what my baby needs? You know? He's saying himself. Oh, yeah, a female that looks like a female version of himself. Okay, that makes sense. I want a robot who looks like me, but the female version. Okay. Okay. We were having fun with your apparent incomplete thought. So don't mind me. Um, but yeah, I would not have a non-human being babysit my child only because you need to be able to assess what is wrong with a child, and I don't think that a robot would be capable of doing that. Sometimes your child just has an ant that's biting them under their shirt. Other times they just have stomach problems. Other times they're just hungry. Other times thirsty. Other times they're just, I don't know, they may have gas or something. How would a robot be able to tell that? But then again, technology seems to be much more advanced than we are told and shown anyway. So I think anything is fucking possible at this point, if you ask me. So nothing really shocks me out there. Unless I were to see some flying disc that's scooping me from my sleep. That would freak me out. But anyways. Alright guys, I'm gonna bail now. So thanks so much for tuning in and for contributing, and I will see you